What's going on, guys? Cody's here. Today I'm going to show you how I like to edit photos in Lightroom. Before I edit the photo, obviously this is just how I like to do it. This is my preference. You may not agree, but hopefully you can pick some things up that maybe that I do today that can improve your Lightroom editing, or maybe you see some things that you like of the way I do it. So let's just hop into it. First thing I'm going to do once I bring the photo, and by the way, this photo is from Philadelphia. I was out, it was raining, it was miserable. All of a sudden the sun came out, the clouds started opening up, and the sunset started occurring, and we got this. So it was pretty awesome. So first thing I'm going to do is go all the way down to enable profile corrections. This will fix any of the issues that occurred while the photo was taken with the lens and things of that nature. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do. Second thing I'm going to do is click this box. This box will allow me to straighten the photo and crop it. If you're not already doing so, the best way or the best crop for Instagram is the 4x5, so make sure you pick that. And I'm going to go with this. I'm going to click auto. A lot of times auto will typically do a pretty good job. Sometimes it doesn't pick up the right angle and it's not 100% straight, so I'll mess around with it, but for the purpose of the video we're just going to continue going on. You can also click this right here, which is an angle tool. Say this is the horizon of the photo and this is what you want to tell Lightroom to make your photo straight based on this specific tool. You can click this and drag, and you're basically again telling Lightroom that you want the photo to be straightened based on that line. So you can do that as well. So that's cool. Let's just go with that. First I'm going to start with the exposure and all these. So let's bring up the exposure a little bit. I'm going to bring the contrast up and create some depth. The highlights I'm going to bring all the way, almost all the way down, because I want to bring out some of the details in the photo. Shadows I'm going to bring almost all the way up. I'll bring it to 100. Whites I'm going to bring up a little bit, and then to compensate and get a little bit of a darker tone, which is typically the kind of photos that I like. I'm going to bring the blacks down to, let's say, 30. So that's a good starting point. I'm going to bring the exposure down a little bit too. That's a good starting point right there. Just to kind of see where you're at so far in your progression, you can click the slash button, which will show the before, and click it again to show the after. I like using Y, which will show both of them next to each other. So as you can see, the before and after, just by making these slight changes to some of these tools, the photo already is starting to look a lot better. So you can also click F, which will bring the photo into a zoom mode and take over your screen, and you can pick away some of the details, or it's just, if you want to envy your photo, you can just do that too. So as we go down, we're going to go down here. I'm going to click Y to get out of that. I'm going to bring the clarity up a little bit. I want to bring some of the sharpness out, and we'll go right about there. In honor of Cody, we'll go with 24. I'm not going to mess with the vibrance or the saturation until I mess with the HSL sliders. I'll show you that in a second. As you scroll down, we get to the tone curve. If you're not already using the tone curve, I would highly suggest just messing around with it. Watch some videos on it. Maybe if it's something that you guys would like, let us know in the comments. Dom and I could possibly do a video to go into more details about the tone curve and how it can affect your photo and make your photo epic. So I'm going to kind of just do a couple things, nothing crazy, and slightly just kind of explain some of the things. So I'm going to start here. As you see, it's RGB, red, green, and blue. I'm going to start with the RGB. I am going to adjust some of the shadows, so I'm going to create dots for the line, so nothing. So you're supposed to be creating the dots so nothing is being changed, and obviously I'm not doing a good job, but again, for the purpose of this video, we're just going to keep it moving. If you take this bottom dot and adjust it up, you can see here how the shadows are, it's not as dark, and it's changing the mood, I guess, of it. I don't know what you want to say, but I like doing that in a lot of my photos, so that's something that I will typically mess around with and adjust for a lot of my work. So let's go. I like that. That looks cool to me. You can also mess with the reds, greens, and the blues. Some people, including myself, sometimes I will do what's called the S curve. I'll create an S in this pattern, which will bring up some of the highlights, but then bring down some of the shadows. So you can see here, and I'm not going to go into crazy dots. I'm just going to do it really simple and fast. So it kind of just brings out some of this. We're going to then go to the green, just do the same thing. Let's go about to there. And then we're going to go to blue and do the same thing as well. And again, that will kind of mess with the contrast. Sometimes it will make the photo pop a little bit more. Sometimes it can be too much, so just be careful how much you're tweaking each line and the dots that you're creating. But to me, I think that looks pretty good. Let's check with Y, and again, the before and after, it looks, it's starting to look like an awesome photo. So as we go down here, this is the HSL sliders. You have hue, saturation, and luminance. So with this photo, if there's a certain point in this photo where you want to see exactly what colors are affected by it, say I want to see exactly what colors are in this part right here. You're going to click this dot, click down on the spot, and you can slide up, and as you can see, the orange and yellows are affected. Slide down, same thing. So you can, it's good to know to see what exactly, when you're messing with certain colors, what exactly it's messing with in that specific photo. So to go back to make these at 0, just double click on each of the colors and that will bring them to 0. I want to bring out some of the red. I kind of like that effect, and I'm not even going to make drastic changes. So we're going to bring those back a little bit, and the yellows, as you can see, sometimes this is what I'll do just to see how drastic it will affect certain things and see again what it's messing with specifically in the photo. So I'm going to bring those down a little bit. I think maybe the blue will be affected the top left. I'm kind of cool with where that's at, so let's keep it there. Then going to go to saturation. So sometimes also when you mess with the tone curve, it's going to create a little bit more of the pop and the saturation in this area, or in the photo in general. So one of the things I'm going to do is bring back some of those oranges, and obviously as you can see that's way too much, but it will adjust how dark or how much orange is in that physical photo. So I want to bring these down a little bit, say 10. I'm going to same thing with the yellows, bring them down a little bit, and the reds, slight, nothing crazy. So you can mess with this, but obviously the greens, there's not really anything messing with that. The aqua is more of the light, and for now I think I'm just going to keep everything how it is. So next stop is the luminance. The luminance, as you can see with the oranges right there, will basically bring out more brightness in the orange or make the orange a little bit darker. So again, this really just depends on what you like. I think what I want to do is bring out some of the brightness in it. So we'll do that, and the yellows I'm going to bring out a little bit as well. And bam! So to me that looks like we're in a pretty good spot, and as you can kind of saw before and after if you caught it, I brought back some of the saturation to give it more of that realistic feel to the photo and not make it too edited. Sometimes I'm the #1 culprit of overdoing photos. Sometimes I would just, go outside, go for a walk, watch some TV, have a bowl of cereal, do something just to get away from viewing the photo for so long and go back to it. And sometimes you can catch things maybe that you didn't see before. So next thing, and actually I kind of just want to go into this split toning again, something that can be very useful for your photos. If you haven't messed around with it, just toy around with it and see how certain things can be affected, and you'll be really surprised if some of the little details that you do in your editing will really go a long way. So for this specific photo, I'm not going to mess with these. I'm going to keep the sharpening and everything like that the same, no noise reduction. And then also going down to calibration. So calibration can be a pretty good tool to use as well. Again, I'm not going to go into crazy detail. There are many photographers out there, and this will be a trick that they use. As you can see, they'll go to the reds, they'll bring up the reds a little bit, and then they'll go to the blues and bring them down. And again, I mean, for this specific photo, that's too much for me. It looks cool, but it's just too much. But kind of just mess around with that. Use that in some photos that you edit going forward and just see what it can do. And again, you know, we have all these tools. They're here for a reason. So you kind of want to know and understand what each one is there for. So make sure you spend some time and just mess around with some things and make yourself uncomfortable a little bit. So going back to the photo, again, what I have here, I'm actually pretty pleased with. I think it's a pretty good photo. And there's only going to be some slight adjustments that I'm going to now focus on. So going back to the top, this circle right here, this is what's called a radiant filter. This right here is also a filter that we'll use in a second, but I'm going to use the radial one first. I want to make this pop a little bit more since it is basically part of the subject of the photo. So we're going to drag this, put it over the light. We're going to go down here, and as you can see, actually if you highlight that dot, everything red is what's going to be affected by the photo. For the purpose of this filter, I want it to only affect inside here. So I'm going to go over here and click invert, and then you can click or highlight this and it will show that it's only affecting inside of the circle. So as you can see too, here there's already some things done. If you actually just go here and click effect, double click it, it will bring everything back to normal. What I want to do is I want to bring out, get some of the shadows out of there. I'm going to bring up some of the whites, and then, but I'm still going to add some of the blacks back to keep the detail and a little contrast. So I'm going to bring out the shadows a little bit more and the exposure a slight. That circle, and I'm actually going to bring up the clarity a little bit, which again will only affect inside the circle, just because I want it to pop a little bit. So cool. Next thing I'm looking at this photo, what can I do to make it better? I'm seeing these buildings here. I mean, you could take the buildings out of the photo, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this, and as you can see, it's going to pop up in a second. It's called the graduated filter. So kind of like the circle, it creates a line, and then anything below that line will now be affected by what I edit. And if you want to switch it, you can just drag it, and everything obviously now above will be affected, but I want to only affect the bottom. So my goal here is I want to, these buildings are a little bit distracting and I want to kind of take them away from the photo a little bit more. So I'm going to take this filter, bring it down to here. And again, if you highlight, you can see the areas that are affected. And we're going to go to effect, make it back to where it was. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to bring back the shadows, the blacks a little bit, and the highlights a little bit. Again, my goal while doing this is I don't want that to be the focal point, which I know it really isn't, but I just want to add that emphasis to making this really stand out. So that's cool. I'm also going to do this building. So I'm actually going to use the circle filter again, the radiant. And let's go over the area. Again, you have to go down here, click invert so it only affects what's in the circle, and double click effect to again clear it to back to normal. And kind of just same thing. I'm gonna bring down the highlights a little bit, bring down the shadows and the black slightly. So again, that kind of just makes this pop more in the photo, and that's less of a distraction to it. So if you want to see how much it affected it, again, you can just delete it, go to edit, undo, delete, and you can see that again it just makes it a little bit of a less known factor in the photo, because my ultimate goal is I want this to shine, so, or pop. Now one thing you can also do, and this is something that I'll do in a lot of my photos too, is again with the filter here, you can bring it around the subject. So right now it's going to be affecting everything outside of it, and this time I actually want that to be the case. One thing that you'll want to mess around with is the feather. So just for the purpose of this video, let me just bring the exposure all the way down so you can see. But the feather will basically, if you bring it back here and then bring it all the way up, it will basically tell the photo how much you want it to blend to look sometimes more natural and things of that nature. So just kind of mess around with it. 50 is obviously the midpoint there, so I think with this I'm going to bring it a little bit down to like 35, and I'm going to bring it out a little bit, and we can again highlight to see what it's affecting. I don't really want it to affect too much up here, so that's cool. So let's bring the exposure back to 0, and if it's something that you want to focus on, we don't typically have to do it here, but if you want that subject to pop a little bit more, you can do this and then bring down the exposure. And again, that's just creating more of that pop in the subject in the photo. So when I first look at the picture, that's the first thing I'm typically going to be focusing on. So you can do that, or you can just bring down some of the shadows, the blacks, and the highlights. I don't want to go too crazy there. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take down the saturation a little bit. And again, as you can see, like nothing drastic, but those little things will sometimes go a really long way in the photo. That to me is cool. So again, if you want to see before and after, click that one. You can delete, see what it looked like, edit, undo, delete. And to me, it just adds a little effect to it, and again, to make this light pop a little bit more, and I like it. So before and after, what do you guys think? Did you like the process? Do you think this photo is overdone? Do you think it's perfect? What do you think can be added or done to this photo to make it that much better? Again, you know, for the purpose of the video, I just wanted to kind of do it a little bit quicker. I typically will spend a lot more time, unfortunately, editing photos and small details that I'm not going to sit here because we would be here forever. But I hope you guys enjoyed seeing how my process is and what I like to do to edit the photos. Again, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments. One thing that we would suggest doing for the future, if you don't have them already, presets are very valuable. We actually have down here, I think these are Peter McKinnon's, so if you don't have any, look into getting some. Dom and I will actually be looking to hopefully release some in the near future, so make sure you guys check out for that. But just to show you an example with Peter McKinnon stuff, you know, it's just a good starting point. So you can go through these, see what you like. Say you like Ember, and that's what the photo you want to do. You can click that, and that's your starting point, and then you can make the adjustments from there to get it to how you want the photo to be or to look like. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope I taught you some things, and if you like these type of videos, let us know. We may be asking you guys to send in some of your own photos to possibly do a video on editing your raw files. So make sure you check that out too. Until next time, I'll see you later.